Marty, thank you for being here. Been a long campaign. I'm sure you're ready to get this thing over with. Rebuild Houston took a pretty big hit just Thursday of this week. Judge ruled that the ballot language wasn't valid and ordered a new election. How's that going to change things?
Well, you know, certainly we have to look at how Houston does business. And Rebuild Houston was a good idea, but it was poorly executed. I think most of the candidates would agree with that. We need to look at how this money is allocated back into the neighborhoods. And my plan called for 30% of the funds collected under Rebuild to be returned back to the neighborhoods. Because the Supreme Court has made some rulings and a local court has also made a ruling, I don't know how it's going to affect Rebuild Houston, but the next mayor is going to have significant challenges, and this is just going to be one that's added to it.
So would you support continuing Rebuild Houston in some form or fashion? How would you redo Rebuild Houston?
Well, we need to be honest with the ballot language. We need to make sure that it is transparent, completely transparent. Also make sure that the funds that are collected under any Rebuild Houston program are actually used for that purpose. And I think that there's a trust issue between city government and the population. We need to return to that. So we need to make sure that funds that are collected are used for that purpose, and that's the bottom line.
And speaking of transparency, a lot of people are complaining about our Public Works Department. There's not a lot of transparency there. You're seeing a lot of hearing the same things you're hearing about Rebuild Houston with Public Works mismanagement. What are your thoughts on Public Works? You're elected mayor. What will you do day one to help change that?
Well, day one, we need to tear down city government. The way it currently exists, it's basically building on top of a broken foundation and over decades. So the next mayor has to have the will to rebuild city government, to be modern, to be efficient, and currently we don't have that. So with Public Works in particular and Planning Department, we need to make sure that you know, we're doing the best to serve the people that we're elected to serve, and we can't do that with antiquated technology. We can't do that with antiquated policies and procedures. We just have to have the political will to rebuild our city government in an efficient manner. It needs to act like a business, and that's why I think that you need a CEO that has the experience to go into a situation where there's turnaround and turn the city around.
And follow up to that, how would your economic development plan fall into that? Because you've often been talking about an economic development plan that you have.
Sure. Economic development has been at the forefront of my campaign since the day I launched. Now we know that this is the #1 issue on Houstonians' minds, is to make sure that we are bringing in new opportunities, new jobs, and new revenue into the city. We can no longer tie our prosperity to the oil field. It's a market that has a downturn, and we need to make sure that our people have our Houstonians have the ability to seek other employment when there's a market downturn. So we need to make sure that we're bringing in those new funds to pay for all the things that we want, like enhanced police services and better roads and all the things that the city provides.
In addition to the mayoral races and the city council races, there are also two ballot initiatives that voters will be facing. One is on the equal rights ordinance, and then the other one's going to be in term limits. What are your positions on that, and how are you asking voters to vote on those?
Well, I am in support of both propositions, 1 and 2. I think that it is in the best interest of the city that there is a yes vote on Proposition 1. For me, it's not politics, it's about business, and I look to the loss of revenue that's estimated to, you know, incur in the city, and it's estimated about $800 million in lost revenue through sporting events and other, you know, business transactions that would not exist in the city of Houston. And that's not tax money into the city, $800 million, but it means a lot to the small business person and to you know, other businesses in the city. I haven't heard any other candidate talk about how you're going to make up that shortfall. Proposition 2 and term limits, I am in support of that as well. I think it's you know, in the best interest that the people that are elected get to work, and if they're running every 2 years, they just quite frankly can't.
The last question before we end up. You are a first-time candidate, and this is a big city, 640 square miles. What have you learned out of this campaign that you didn't know going into it?
Well, you know, I learned that there's a lot of parts of this city that I haven't seen before, and you know, quite frankly, I'm surprised. We have more underserved in this city than we have served, and I think that, you know, we need to consolidate our city government and make sure that that we're serving all parts of Houston, not just inside the Loop and places like the Galleria. Down in Sunnyside and Acres Homes, there's a lot of opportunity to bring in new businesses and new infrastructure there. I think it's in the best interest of the city.
Everyone, every candidate is talking about bringing in more police, up to 1,500, some have said. I haven't heard anybody tell me yet how they're going to pay for that. At the same time, deal with the budget crisis that is looming in the city with respect to the retirement plans for the firefighters and the police and the municipal plans that are going to be billions in the hole. How are you going to fix all that?
Well, I've said at over 60 forums and debates, how we pay for that is through economic development. The city needs more rooftops and more businesses to come into the 640 square miles, not just out in Sugar Land and Pearland and other parts of our 10-county regional economy. We need to bring those businesses and rooftops right here to Houston. We live in an economic donut, and that's a fact. We're not going to be able to pay for the things that we need, better roads, more police officers without that. So that's how you do that. We have to balance the budget. We have to fix our pension system, and you can do that through bonding. The old employees need to stay in the old system, and the new employees need to be in a new system.
I don't think you can pass bonds to pay for pensions.
Yes, you can.
All right.
And
real quick,
I want to say there's nothing wrong with having more businesses in Sugar Land. Just saying.
Marty McVey,
You just got ours.
Marty, thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you,
in
Chris.
today. Good luck
Thank
in the
you.
race.